I'm going to talk about immigration, illegal immigration, immigration policy of the United States. And I'm going to state some facts that people don't know. You hear what you hear in the media, but the media has not reported on certain facts which might change your opinion on immigration policies that the United States has. First of all, the United States has, I believe, the most immigrants in the world, and it's tough to get into the United States. However, it's easy to get into here illegally, and we might have the most illegal immigrants in the world. I don't know. But to suggest that there's a problem where there's not enough illegal immigrants is just nonsense. There's large numbers of illegal immigrants in the United States. And the United States is not strict enough. We have lenient policies on illegal immigration. Most countries, if you are there illegally, you will be fined, you will be banned from the country or imprisoned, including the United States. Most countries have that as law. And when you enter the United States, you need a passport. When you leave the United States, you do not go through immigration. You just get on the plane and you leave. They don't check your status. However, in foreign countries, it's not true. If you live in Colombia or the Philippines, these are countries that I've lived in. I don't remember Peru, but probably true for Peru also. You have to go through immigration when you leave the country. And what they do is they check to see if you were there illegally. You have to stay the amount of time that they tell you. So if they say you can stay for 1 month, that's it. You can stay for 1 month. And if you go over, they're going to fine you, they could imprison you, and they can ban you. In the Philippines, if you are here for 1 year beyond your stay, you will be banned for life, which means you will not re-enter, and you have to fly in. You can't run across the ocean. You'd be banned for life. You're never going to come back. One thing that people do not understand is that almost everybody, you can only live in the country that you were born in and that you are a national of. You do not have the right, if you are an American, to live in any country you want. You cannot. You have to get the permission of the government of the country you want to move to in order to live there. So anybody that says, oh, if this person gets elected, I'm going to move to Canada. No, you're not. Because when you get there, they're going to say you're not welcome here because you take jobs away from Canadians, and Canadians are the priority. And you're going to be put on our social welfare system that you don't pay into because you don't have a job. And they will not. There is no such thing as a visa. That's what the term is. A visa is the permission to stay in another country. There's no such thing. No country has a visa for you to just move there. There's no such thing. You have tourist visa, which means you go and visit for a month. You have a business visa, you go and visit for a month to do business. You have like an entertainment visa where you're a famous celebrity who's world-renowned because you're going to do a concert. You go there for a month. You got a political visa where you're a politician. You got to get approval when you arrive at the foreign country from the government. You stay for a month. And that's the majority of it. There's no such thing as I want to move to Mexico. I'm going to go to Mexico. Not going to happen. They're going to stop you at the border. They're going to say you can stay for 6 months. After that, get out. Go back to where you came from. If you overstay, you're going to be fined and put in prison. And potentially banned and deported. And every country has the exact same laws. Some are more strict, some are less strict. In Peru, every day you stay extra, you pay $1. In Colombia, you stay a day extra, it's like $300. In Philippines, you stay for a year, you are banned for life. In the Philippines, you can't even go to immigration without permission. You want to leave the country, you got to go to the government agency, the government office first, to get permission to leave the country. And then everybody else just goes to the airport, or okay? So then when you go to the airport, you already went to another agency to get your documents, and then you go to the airport and you got to say, I have permission to leave the country. And it might be the same in China, they have laws like that in Saudi Arabia. Other countries are going to have laws like that. They regulate who goes in and out over the border. Most countries you can visit for about 2 months if you're an American. If you want to stay longer than that, there's a few countries that let you stay for 3 months, and there's a small handful that let you stay for 6 months. The UK, Canada, Mexico, and Australia. Peru allows 6 months. Belize is not specified. So Belize, it could be anything, whatever they decide at the border. It could be a month, it could be a year, etc. The same applies when people come to the United States. You can stay for a period of time, and then you got to go. And when people say, I got a 10-year visa, the visa usually says that you can stay in the country for 6 months, and then you have to leave, and then you can come back without applying for another visa up to 10 years. But you got to leave every year. So people talk about, well, everybody should live in the United States. It's a right. Everybody should have the right to live in it. No, no country has any such policy. It does not exist in this world. You don't have the right to live in any country you want, and nobody has the right to just live in the United States. If they do so, they're here illegally. People don't understand that. People who say, we welcome illegals, well, guess what? They don't welcome you. You're not welcome in the country that they came from. And they will fine you, and they will put you in prison. I read a story of a guy who went to Mexico. I met a guy, went to Mexico, and because he was from Texas, he was a gun owner, and he had a spent shell, which means in his truck on the floor. And a spent shell means that is an empty casing that used to contain a bullet. And I believe he was imprisoned for that. Maybe it was a short period of time, just jail time or something, but that they did take him and they gave him a hard time about it, and he probably had to pay a fee. And you don't want to be in a Mexican jail. You're not going to have the same conditions as an American jail. So anybody who thinks that people have rights to live in other countries, that is not the way the world works. You do not have the right to live in any country you choose. You only have the right to live in the country that you have citizenship in. A passport does not grant you a right to live in any country. That's a big deal. Every country says, including Colombia, that you can't live there and you can't work there if you're visiting. If you're visiting, you are prohibited from working there because they don't want you taking a job away from a Colombian. And they don't want you to partake in their social welfare system. Same laws as the United States. It's nothing new. The rest of the world has the same laws. People who want people to be illegally in the United States want there to be an exception that the rest of the world does not recognize and that the countries that these people come from does not recognize. Now, there's other issues with illegal immigration. I'm a first-generation American, so don't say I'm against immigration. Everybody in my family is an immigrant. They all, without exception, were born in another country, in the same town, in Italy. My parents, my aunts and uncles, cousins, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-uncles, great-aunts, all emigrated. First-generation American. I, being the son of a first-generation American, makes me a first-generation American. Both of my parents, everybody from the same town. I am not against immigration. I am very pro-immigration, and as a child, up until the end of college, all of my friends and my best friends were foreigners, first-generation Americans. We get along with each other. We like each other. And I like them. I like them, and they like me. We have the same beliefs. I don't get along with Americans. I don't like the shallowness. I don't like the plasticity. I don't like the obsession with looks and with the obsession with violence, the obsession with money. I don't like all those things about America. So we have other issues. We've got, okay, so people say, well, these people have to come here because where they came from is dangerous. That is absolutely not true. People say it, but where's the proof? I'm going to tell you what my experience is, and I'm going to tell you about the lack of proof. Proof is you go there and you videotape, you show statistics, you show the place that people are living in, you show statistics where people are dying, getting robbed, getting beat up. Show those statistics. People don't. The death rate, the murder rate is not sky high in some neighborhood that some illegal immigrant came from. It's nonsense. The same, South Africa has the highest murder rates in the world, or at least it did at one time. Murder rates are within a certain range in every country, an acceptable range. There is no country where you've got crazy amounts of people being killed, unless there's an active war going on. These people, okay, so the next point that I'm going to say is you don't have the evidence that these places are dangerous. People say that they are, but they're saying it without evidence, and it's not factual. The facts are that these places are not dangerous. They're not bad places to live. I lived in these places. I live in one of those places right now. I lived in Colombia for 8 years. I lived in Peru, I don't know, for less than 2 years. And I live in the Philippines for 6 months. And I live in horrible neighborhoods. There were times that there's no such thing as saying you live in a good neighborhood. It's okay. So there were in Medellin, there was a better part of town, and there was a part of town that wasn't better. And I guess it was true in Cali also. But in the Philippines, there's no such thing as a better part of town. Wherever you live, you're not living in a good neighborhood. I don't like going outside at night. I don't even like going outside in the daytime. When I go outside at night, I do not take my wallet with me. I take the amount of money that I think I'm going to need for whatever I'm going to do, which is usually going to a 24-hour restaurant. Finding poverty is extremely easy. You generally have to walk within your block. You're going to find poverty. Homeless people, homeless children sleeping on the streets. They know me. I give them food, so they're always asking me for food and money. You will see dilapidated buildings, litter everywhere, weird people who just bother you, crazy people. You see crazy people. And pollution. I was in Mexico, and the roads were not paved. And in Colombia, I saw that a lot. Sometimes the roads just weren't paved, and they were difficult to walk on because it was so bumpy. It would be rock and dirt, a lot of dirt, mostly dirt with some rocks, and big potholes everywhere. Difficult to drive on, difficult to walk on, and if I had my motorcycle, difficult to ride a motorcycle on. And I did ride a motorcycle on these dirt roads. I had to get up and leave. The road conditions are horrible. In some of the neighborhoods, they're very crowded, difficult to drive through because people walk everywhere because everything is close. They don't go to the big Walmart in the center of town. They go to the bodega, and there's 10 bodegas within a block. Everything they need is nearby. And I was a foreigner, and everyone always warned me, you're a foreigner, you're going to get kidnapped going in there. I never got kidnapped going in any of these neighborhoods. Never saw a gun, never saw violence. Didn't see people screaming, didn't see people robbing anything. I also lived in Manhattan in New York City. I did see some crimes, guns and stuff a couple of times. 10 years overseas, nothing. Live in horrible neighborhoods. Not only do I live in these neighborhoods, but I work with these people. I hire them. They're my employees. And the employees that don't live in the absolute worst neighborhoods will sometimes say, oh, yeah, she lives in a bad neighborhood. She lives in a bad neighborhood. They'll say things like that. There's nothing about these people that's weird. They're not crazy people. They're just normal people like everybody else. They're not deficient. They're not starving. They're not stupid. They're not sick. They're not dying. They're just people. They just live in a neighborhood that's more poor than somebody else's neighborhood. And I've been in the worst of these neighborhoods. They told me that the police will not go in these neighborhoods to remove the dead bodies from the gang warfare. That's the belief. There was gang violence for periods of time. But gang violence doesn't last forever. When it lasts forever, the country is out of control, and it's not like that everywhere in the world. It happens for short periods of time because at some point the people are going to say, police, do something about it, send the military in, and it gets dealt with. There isn't long-term people shooting randomly everybody in the neighborhoods in any neighborhoods in the world. It doesn't happen. There's no incentive for someone to go rob someone who has no money. There's no incentive to just randomly kill people. These neighborhoods are not filled with the danger that people believe that they're filled with. It's fake news. The people have misconceptions. You look at the photos of these neighborhoods, and these are the neighborhoods that I'm in, or live next to, or walk past, or walk through. So it is arrogant to say that these people need to be in the United States because where they come from is a shithole. It's extremely arrogant. These people love where they live. I met tons of people, lots of women, single guy, went on dates with lots of women, and I asked a lot of them, would you rather live here with me or in the United States? They all say here. They don't want to live in the United States. That's the people that I met. Another experience is that everybody has a relative in the United States, and they love the United States. When I would ride in a taxi, the radios were always playing, and every day you hear them talking about the United States, and walking down the street, you always hear foreigners talking about the United States. People talk about the United States. They believe that American products are better than the domestic products. They would say, oh, that's an American washing machine. It's better than the Mexican washing machine. That's a Mexican washing machine. It's not as good. You know, the potato chips from America are better than the local potato chips. Trust me. So it's very arrogant to say that these people have to be in the United States because they live in a shithole and where they live in is not worth living in. These people that are illegally in the United States have a nation that they came from where they have a legal status. They can go there for affordable health care and they can get jobs there. They come to the United States primarily for work. They make money because they make substantially more money in the United States. When you raise the minimum wage, they're going to make a lot more money. And more people are going to illegally come to the United States. That's what will happen. And they'll be in the process of taking jobs from Americans. That's what happens when you raise the minimum wage. So it's arrogant, and I disapprove of people saying that. Many people are really proud of the country that they came from. If you go to Mexico, they all are going to have relatives. When I went to Mexico, I saw Texas license plates all over the place. And driving across the bridge, it was all Texas license plates. They all have relatives in the U.S. They love the U.S. And there's a lot of people who want to live in Mexico. They like the fact, they know that there's a hectic life in the U.S. and they like the relaxed, easy life of being in the country that they're from. And they're proud of their country. My parents came here legally, and there's many people that came to the United States legally from Mexico. Colombia is the second largest, and I think Italy is actually still the number one of all time. At least it was for many years. Ireland, etc. My experience with immigrants that came here legally is they want people to come here legally. They are opposed to illegal immigration. They don't like it when people come to the country illegally. They know that what they went through was a fair process, and they know that other people can do it fairly, and they know that those people are not trying. Now, part of the problem with illegal immigration is politics. It's very simple. We want these people should be allowed to, see, don't ever say if you think I'm against immigration or against illegal immigration, you're absolutely wrong. People should be allowed to live in any country that they want to. That's my belief. But you're not allowed to. And if I had my way, think about the city of Detroit lost, I don't know how many people it was. Is it 1 million people, 5 million people, 500,000 people? Some crazy number of people in the population is gone. And there's just empty houses. So many empty houses that they shut off the electricity for the streetlights. Whole neighborhoods are dark. in Detroit. We could take immigrants from a country like India and move them en masse and bring them to the United States, to a city like Detroit, and save that city. Just an example of one of the ideas that I had. There's a process that you go through when you have illegal immigrants. You don't just say, okay, I'm going to grant everyone's legal status. You don't. That's not the proper way to do it. The first thing you got to do is say, well, who's here? You don't make decisions without knowing who's here. Because what if they're all criminals? Are you going to grant legal status and you find out that 10% are murderers? You find out who's here first. So you have to have a program. We have the technology to do this. You make a website. You put in your name, like Luis Velez. There's going to be 1,000 people named Luis Velez. And you put in your name. You put an address okay, let's say you just put a name and an email address so that you're still anonymous. You upload a photo of yourself, and maybe a photo of you standing next to the post office in your town, or some iconic figure, so that they know that you're in the United States. And you put down, I'm here illegally, I'm this old, I'm from this country, I have this ID from this country, etc. You put down some information about yourself. You put down, I work doing this type of job, or I'm unemployed, or I have a business, I hire people. Put down all the information about who's here. I have been arrested, I've never been arrested. And you put down, I understand that if I am offered citizenship, this information will be reviewed, and that if it is incorrect, it may delay or prevent me being permitted to stay in the country legally. And the honest people are going to fill it out in droves, and no risk at them getting caught. And you create a database of who's here. And then you can make an educated decision. You can say to everybody, look at all these people that are here. Hey, you know what? This guy actually employs people. He's a lawyer, and he's helping Hispanic people who need a Spanish-speaking lawyer who speaks English, etc. And he might even help with immigration law. And then you can say, we want this guy to be in this country. He's not going to be a drain on our Social Security system. He's not going to be a drain on the taxes, etc. Make an educated decision. We want this guy here. Everybody's going to say yes. Or here's a woman, she's 70 years old. She lived in the United States all of her life. She came here illegally when she was 18. She always lived here. She doesn't work anymore. She's retired. Her family provides for her. She's not collecting any Social Security. She's not going to take a job away from anyone. Let's let her stay. Approve it. Bam. This guy's 12 years old. I know a lot of people. I had many employees that were in the country illegally in the United States because they got deported, and I hired them because they grew up in the United States. They spoke fluent English and Spanish, and I hired them after they were deported. So I knew a lot of illegal immigrants. They told me their stories, etc. So here you got a guy who's 6 years old. He's going to be 18. He wants to go to college. He's valedictorian. Yeah, let's keep him. And we can go through and make educated decisions about all these people. And then when someone says, well, you know, I did a small-time robbery, I went to jail, I got deported, I came back, you know, and the guy tells a story, there might be somebody who says, well, maybe this person should not be given citizenship. He has citizenship in another country. He's not left out in the dark. Maybe there's an alternative option. Maybe this person can receive a green card or a temporary status. Maybe he's got a family he's got to take care of in the country, and that grants him a reason to stay, and he does have a good work history. You make educated decisions. First, you got to find out who's here. And no one has proposed that as far as I know. They just made assumptions. There's 800,000 illegals. You don't know that. So educate yourself first. I worried that, well, bringing in more people is going to be a drain on everybody. But it's not really true, because when you bring more people in, we can handle bringing more people into the country. We can handle it. The social welfare systems will handle it. The hospitals will handle it. The police departments will be able to handle it. Educational system. We can bring more people in. I believe that if someone is a seasonal worker, this is what people do. They know that the minimum wage in Mexico is $1.50. Over here, they can make $5 an hour, and they don't pay taxes. They can get a seasonal pass, work in the United States, go home, earn trust with the country. They're going to come during the summer to work on the farms. I live near farms. You'd see trucks of Mexicans driving by. That's what it was like, living near a farm. And they're going to go home for the winter. They only have to work a few months and they'll have enough money for the year. It's profitable for them to come to the United States. And I knew a guy who said he worked in the United States, saved his money, went to prison because he got caught, but he had enough money saved to buy a house when he went back to Colombia. And he makes money from that house. And I heard lots of stories like that. And there's people who lived in the United States and left voluntarily without being deported. And a guy told me I paid a guy $3,000 to drive me over the border, and I got deported because I was with my cousin. He got in a car accident, got caught, got deported. I don't remember who told me that story. So the seasonal workers would earn the trust of the government, get their visas. They would come in when the government says, yes, you can come in, leave. The time the government says that they leave, they go back home, they spend the winter with their families, they repeat the process the next year, and you have the jobs program at the border or in Mexico. So if there's no jobs available, they're not going to waste their time. And if there are jobs available, they're going to have a place to go, and there's going to be a bus waiting for them to take them to the place where they're going to work or nearby the place where they're going to work. I believe it was in Colorado, they passed a law requiring police to check the status of immigration or something. And what was happening is they started arresting illegal immigrants. And there was the guy who was like the head of the agriculture, a private agriculture group, he represented farms, who called a politician. And he was a former politician who was hired to be a lobbyist. And he said, "You're arresting all of my workers." And they said, oops, we got to change this law. What people don't know is that there's a minimum wage in this country, and there are people working illegally beneath the minimum wage. If you believe that people are supposed to be making $15 an hour, I got news for you. There's people that are making less than that, below the amount that you believe should be paid to a person. And they are illegal immigrants. And the government doesn't talk about it. It's a secret. They know about it, and they refuse to talk about it. Politicians cover it up. They cover up the fact that there are people working here illegally for an illegal wage. Another proposal that I had, well, they say if you're going to come to this country and you're not going to pay taxes, well, how much do you think a person makes on minimum wage? How much taxes do they pay per year? How many years do you think this guy is going to live here? Charge him that much in taxes up front, and then you ain't got a problem. It's prepaid, and then you let people in, and then people can come in a fair manner when before maybe you thought it was unfair. So there's a lot of solutions to illegal immigration, and I'm a proponent of bringing people in. I also believe the future of the world is to unify. The United Nations is not the solution for a unified government. You have the European Union, you have the United States with protectorates such as Puerto Rico. Eventually, we're probably going to have more protectorates. Why shouldn't Mexico become a protectorate of the United States? It would allow people to live in Mexico who want the lower standard of living. I want the lower standard of living because I can afford to live here without working. I lived for many years off of savings. And my job is great. My job is very easy. Don't complain about my job. You wish you had my job. And I meet lots of great people. So businesses would set up in Mexico. The wages might increase. In Puerto Rico, I believe it's $4 an hour. It would stop the majority of the illegal immigration problem. You wouldn't need a wall across Mexico. And people would be happier. It's morally right. They're not giving much up except for any differences in federal laws. And the laws are not going to be that much different. There will be some differences, but it would essentially be a state. And because most of our laws are at the state level, like houses and stuff like that, where in Mexico it might be at the federal level, it's not going to change anything. They'll still be able to maintain most of their laws, except for things like murder. The penalties might be different. I don't know. Venezuela is a country that we could make a protectorate, and Venezuelans would be allowed to live in the United States. Americans would be allowed to live in Venezuela. Now is definitely the time to do it, and I bet you they all will say yes. And I believe that the future of the world will be expansion of the United States and merging with other countries, including Canada. And it doesn't have to be all for one. It could be done, like, for example, you don't have the right to live in Canada. If you go to Canada for 6 months, that's it. You're out after that. Why not change the law so that we could both live in each country? Why not do that? I think it's a good idea. Trust me, there's going to be a lot of people going to Canada. There's good things about going to Canada, except for the weather. But because I grew up in New York, upstate New York, I'm not that far off from the weather. I will be adjusted to it in many ways. So those are my thoughts on illegal immigration. These are things that I don't hear people talking about in the news. I hope I brought to your attention some of the aspects. For example, the fact that you really don't have any rights. These people who are illegally here are really granted more rights than you would have if you went somewhere else. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments, please post below.